What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. I'm Draft Cheat, of course, joined today, as usual, on Monday afternoon by Mr. JT Hayes, talking today's 8-game MLB slate. JT, how you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Doing good. It's a full day down here in Atlanta. It's sunny. It's warm. It's baseball season, DC. This is what we've been waiting for the weather to warm up. Travis insisted that I talk to you about the dead balls because I told him that I just can't get on board with this argument after all the changes that the commissioner basically forced on the teams to increase the offense, take away the shift. It's hard for me to believe that he would then deaden the balls for the first 2 months of the season. So it could be manufacturing, it could be something else, but I think more than anything else, it's just been cool in the United States, most of these cities. And now we're seeing that temperature heat up, and certainly this weekend in a lot of places it was nice and humid here in the Atlanta area, and we saw some runs on Saturday. And it's an interesting slate tonight because there's not a lot of obvious offensive spots outside of Coors Field, but I do think there are some pitchers that are due to come back to earth. So we'll get it going for this kick the week off right with Run Pure Sports here.
That's right, and it's kind of that point in the season. Obviously, we got the NBA Finals coming up when baseball kind of takes center stage. I know non-baseball fans, not necessarily the biggest fans of this time of year. Best ball season, right? So Mangone isn't getting laid. Listen, we could do a whole hour on the reasons Mangone isn't getting laid. We wouldn't even need to talk any baseball on the show, but we might see the numbers dwindle if we went down that direction, JT.
Yeah, listen, first of all, a good day yesterday for Travis, so he could find whatever he wants tonight. He's got the cash. It's all good.
Did Mangone ship something in baseball that I miss? I missed it.
You got a top five. You got a top five yesterday, so you have to appreciate the grind, and that's probably where he's at right now, grinder. But we'll move on.
Yeah, no wonder he's all excited and chat with this top five performance. So congratulations, sweet Travis Mangone, and hopefully we get some more RPS logos in that top five tonight. Let's get right into it. 8 games to talk about. First game on the slate. It does start, by the way, 25 minutes earlier, 6:40 Eastern time start time for this Milwaukee Philadelphia game, which is included on the slate. DraftKings, they seem to just include them on smaller slates. On bigger slates, they typically leave them off. But it is on the slate today. Milwaukee Brewers, Philadelphia Phillies. 8 total in this one. Phillies sitting around -200 behind Zach Wheeler, who I think is probably maybe the most consistent pitcher in baseball. There's, of course, some pitchers on this slate even that could argue for that claim. But he's been awesome. I think he'll continue to pitch well. You know what you're going to get from him most times out. Kind of a tough matchup here against the Brewers, who do a pretty good job of putting the ball in play. One of the more surprising offenses, I think, this year are the Milwaukee Brewers. So not a cakewalk of a matchup by any means for Wheeler, who is the most expensive pitcher on the slate. But still, I think he is certainly in play at 10.7K. Looks like a little bit of a bullpen game for the Brewers. Bryce Wilson scheduled to throw the bulk of the innings. Looks like Jared Koenig will open, probably just pitch an inning or two for the Brewers. And then nice hitting weather in Citizens Bank Park, 80 degrees. Pretty warm all around the country, like you mentioned before. So should see some runs tonight. Philadelphia and Milwaukee, JT. What do you got for us here?
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying that Beanair is an undercover Run Pure Sports employee because he never misses a show. And I'm so happy that he's here to start our week off as he's polluting the chat with his unsavory comments. But, it's interesting, right? So the Brewers have been great, outstanding offensively. William Contreras having a career year. Was reading about him earlier. It's an interesting spot because they go from facing White Sox pitching for 3 or 4 days now to arguably, like you said, the best pitcher in the National League so far this season. It's really a price thing for me is, can he pay off his price tag at 10-7? Against many teams he can. Can he pay it off against what has been the best offense in the National League? I don't think Zach's a priority here. Mm-hmm. I think you'd be maybe not crazy if you wanted to, just because he's going to be 40% owned, play a couple of Milwaukee bats. I just don't love them. There are other spots I prefer better. But I do like the Phillies here, DC. The Phillies have been on another level offensively. They're going to get Koenig and then Bryce Wilson, who it looks like Pat Murphy and the Brewers trying to find ways so that he doesn't regress to what he really is, which is a very good pitcher. And so the thing that's interesting about the Phillies here, usually when they do this, right, a team will open up with a left-handed pitcher, follow with a right-handed pitcher, but the Phillies, they don't really pinch hit. So you're going to get 3 innings, I think, of Bryce Wilson. Maybe you get less because they hit the ball really hard, but I think the Phillies stack here is interesting to me on the slate. The Brewers pitchers are unusable.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Brewers pitchers. No interest there. The lefties for the Phillies look particularly good. Schwarber, Bryce Harper on my short list. And if you do want to pick on Zach Wheeler, not a bad idea, right? We know he's going to be somewhat popular, I assume. I bet he'll be the 3rd or 4th highest owned pitcher on the slate. Lots of good ones to choose from. Lefty power is the best bet against Wheeler if you do want to go that direction. Christian Yelich, I think, would be the best play there, but no real reason to pick on Zach Wheeler on this slate. So would just be obviously a contrarian leverage type of play if you did want to go in that direction. I'm with you on Wheeler. I think, if you make a stack of cheaper owned bats that you like for whatever reason and you've got the salary, I have no problem with it, but I'm with you. Not a priority, not the first guy in any of my lineups tonight. Let's get to the next game on the slate, New York Mets and the Washington Nationals. This one in D.C. It is Mackenzie Gore and Tyler McGill. Gore coming off really strong game against the Atlanta Braves. One of his best of the year. Has actually been downright dominant 2 starts in a row, one against Atlanta, one against Seattle. We've talked a lot about him on this show. He's made some steps forward this season, no question about it. Velocity's been up, strikeouts have been up. He's looked good, and I think he's got a good chance to pitch well here against the Mets, who, they do generally do a pretty good job of putting the ball in play, but it's not really an offense that you fear overall. Gore will look to, make it 3 straight starts of 30-plus fantasy points. Obviously a tall task there, but he's pitching well. He's got upside in any matchup. He's interesting, I think, at 9K. And then so is Tyler McGill, in my opinion. Came back from the IL a couple starts ago. Has faced, in Cleveland and the Dodgers so far. So 2 tough matchups. And he's pitched well in both of them. 2 teams that make pretty good contact. Struck out 9 Dodgers over 7 innings. Prior to that, 7 Guardians over 5 innings. Did get up to 98 pitches in that start against LA. So he's interesting here, I think, JT, at 7,200 against, we call them pesky at times, the Nationals. But let's be honest, it is a pretty good matchup, I think, if you look at the numbers for Tyler McGill, who, I think is one of several pitchers in play on this slate. He is cheap at 7,200. I like both these guys. I actually think I lean the McGill side with the savings. What about you, JT? Mackenzie Gore, Tyler McGill, Nationals, and Mets. Where do you stand here?
Yeah, there's some talk about what McGill has done with his pitch mix and going back to some of the things that had him have success when he first got into the Mets rotation. And like you said, he's looked good, really good games against the Guardians, and then at home against the Dodgers, which obviously a tough matchup. He gets a little, in terms of a strikeout matchup, it's not the greatest strikeout matchup here, but for 7,200, I do think he's playable. Again, not necessarily a priority, but I do think he's playable. And then I'm looking at this Gore matchup with the Mets, what he's done the last 2 times against Seattle and against the Braves, 2 teams that have just been striking out a tremendous amount. And he doesn't get that here with the Mets. And the other thing with the Mets is their bats have actually come to life over the course of the last week here. So I don't hate the Mets as a contrarian stack. I think it's a little bit interesting. People in chat are talking about Washington and, base runners. Look, the Mets have had a struggle. They've not been able to stop any base runners. They've got Luis Torrens now trying to do anything they can to upgrade their defensive productivity or defensive capabilities. So I just don't love the Nationals in this spot because of how well McGill has pitched and what looks like a real change for him. That being said, DC, we have seen this Mets bullpen just be almost absolutely the worst in baseball. So I can't really knock the Nats. I probably will reserve them more myself for mini stacks and not really be getting to 5-mans.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And looking at Torrance, I don't think he's going to be the solution to the running game woes from the Mets. McGill has given up 4 stolen bases in just a few innings pitched this year. So we know how aggressive the Nationals are on the base paths. So yeah, I get that, and it's still a pretty small sample size with McGill. Where I'm with you, I think he is pretty good, but wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of regress back to what we've seen in the past. Not a long track record there. Nationals guys that can run: Thomas, Luis Garcia. No Abrams in the lineup. Does hurt the running matchup. Winker can run a little bit, so yeah, I don't hate that if you're trying to kick Contrarian, but I do lean just playing Tyler McGill myself. I think he's a pretty good player at 7,200 if you do need that savings. And I'm with you on Gore. I think I'm leaning going a different direction for the most part. But yeah, still for sure in my pool. It looks like Mike and Tyler give McGill around 10% owned, which feels pretty good to me at that price point in this matchup. And yeah, people mentioning the hot weather in DC for sure. Ball should be flying pretty good today, so we might see some home runs. But yeah, I'm in on Tyler McGill for sure. Let's go to Baltimore and Toronto next. 2 good pitchers here. Again, kind of a theme on this slate. A lot of good arms going. Grayson Rodriguez pitching for Baltimore Orioles, pitching pretty well this year. And Kevin Gausman, who's been kind of all over the place this year, but has had 3 solid outings in a row. A little bit disappointing last time out against the White Sox. Only 3 strikeouts in that one. Pretty surprising from Gausman. The market, the numbers still back him. The Blue Jays, kind of surprising to me that this game is a kind of a toss-up in the betting market, but they still expect success for Gausman. I don't love either of these pitchers. Still love the matchup for either of them. Blue Jays have been a disappointing offense overall, but strikeout rates remain pretty low for them. So I don't know if I want to pay $9,400 for Grayson Rodriguez. Gausman, I mean, if you believe he's the same pitcher that we've seen the last couple of years, which there is some data to indicate that, $8K for him, is at least a kind of a talent discount, not necessarily from what he's produced this year. But interested to hear where you stand on Rodriguez, on Gausman, and then any bats you're going to in this game, JT.
Well, let's talk about Gausman's last 3 games. Like you said, he's seemingly righted his problems. However, his last 3 games, Tampa Bay, in Detroit, and at the White Sox. Wow, you're definitely facing a much, much better offense here tonight. The problem for me in getting very excited about the Orioles is I really just hate this park. It just seems like this park more often than not disappoints. That being said, I'm more interested on Orioles bats here than a 30% owned Kevin Gausman. That's going to be a popular play that I'm looking to be different than the field tonight. And I really don't have a ton of interest here in the Jays at all. So, and as far as the point on Rodriguez, right? 9,400. He's really not, he hasn't gone past the 6th inning at all so far this season. No reason to believe that they would leave him in there more than 6 in this matchup. And it's just an okay strikeout matchup. So for that price point and that inning ceiling, I think that I will either, get up to one of the higher price pitchers or go down into that 7K range and find something there.
I'm with you. Yeah, Squid says best play on the slate. That's kind of looks like that's kind of the consensus, right? It does look like he's going to be high owned. What we're seeing, 30 to 35% on Gausman. I'm with you, JT. I don't really want to pick on this Orioles team, and I think you bring up a good point with the strength of schedule.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much easier than that. White Sox, Detroit, Tampa Bay, 3 of the worst offenses in the league, and even then, only the Detroit game was really dominant. The Orioles contrarian stack, I know you brought it up. The park, obviously, Toronto is a concern. Do we know if the roof might be open tonight? That could potentially help things, I think. But Gausman, even when he's going good, he does give up a lot of hard contact and a lot of power given up to left-handed bats. So yeah, Gunnar Henderson.
I believe you can run on Gosman too, right? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so. So yeah. Bonus to Gunnar. They got Connor Norby up from the minor leagues. He's 2K hitting ninth for some salary relief. And looking at the ownership, you'll get these Orioles guys like 5% or less. I think all of them, and some of them maybe down at 1 or 2% against a highly owned pitcher. Makes some sense to me. Might use a team on a contrarian Orioles stack. Listen, we've seen Gausman blown up, 3 or 4 times this year, it seems like. And that happens to him in other years too. Even when he's kind of really going good, he will have occasional really bad starts that would be very, very productive to stack against. So got some interest here in the Orioles as a contrarian stack for sure. They're expensive, but the super low ownership is pretty enticing to me. You going into any Toronto bats at all? I really don't see much there that I want to play.
I don't love them. I think as much as I'm not really interested in playing Grayson Rodriguez because of his ceiling relative to other pitchers on the slate in terms of how far he's going to go, I just I can't see myself getting excited about Toronto bats.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with Rodriguez and the Toronto bats. Probably going to avoid both sides of that matchup. Let's get to Detroit and the Texas Rangers next. 2 more good pitchers. We got Nathan Eovaldi, who had a weird return from the IL in his last start, missed almost a month. They put him back in the rotation. He only pitched 3 innings. He didn't do a rehab start, 37 pitches. And that one kind of just strange that they used him in that way. It's been almost a week, obviously, since that start. So I think there's a decent chance Eovaldi probably back up. I don't know, near 80 pitches would be, again, just a guess, but that would be what I would expect, something around there from Eovaldi today. 7,600 is a good price tag for him. And I mean, this matchup against the Tigers is very enticing. They just don't have a lot of punch in that lineup outside of Riley Green. They do have some lower strikeout rate guys in the lineup these days, like Colt Keith. Urshela does a good job putting the ball in play. The 3 free strikeouts from Spencer Torkelson nightly are no longer available. He was optioned down to AAA Toledo yesterday, which actually hurts the pitching matchup against the Tigers quite a bit, not having him in there. So I don't think I can do Eovaldi at 7,600. I don't think it's the worst play, but I think there are better pitching plays on the slate. And then our guy, Tarek Skubal, he has been absolutely lights out all year. Finished last year like this. I mean, at this point, it's just kind of who Tarek Skubal is. Dude is nasty, goes deep into games, tons of strikeouts. And, he does get, on paper, I think a pretty difficult matchup against the Rangers, but he's certainly good enough to mow through any team. And I have no problem paying the 10-5 for Skubal. I think I prefer him to Zach Wheeler slightly. Interested to hear where you stand on between Skubal and Wheeler if you are paying for pitching. Any interest in Eovaldi, and then any hitters in this game? I don't see a whole ton to target, but what do you got for us between Detroit and Texas?
Yeah, I'll start with Eovaldi. 37 pitches, I think, in that performance his last time out. I'm nervous on the pitch count there because when I first looked at the slate, I was like, Eovaldi 7,600 against the Tigers. I mean, it's like an auto play, right? I don't know. I don't know what he's going to get in terms of pitch count. He doesn't have a prop for outs recorded, so there's not a lot of information there.
Yeah.
But I will, of course, join you on Skubal here. 10-5. He's been dominant. He's had his down games, but this matchup, when you look at it, what Texas has been doing the last couple of weeks, just straight struggling against left-handed pitching. So, and he's not doesn't seem, at least at the glance that I took right now, doesn't seem to be getting the type of ownership that you'd expect on this type of play. I think people are still a little bit leery about picking on Texas, but they've been a much different team this year, particularly against left-handed pitching. As far as bats, I do not have much interest in either side of this game offensively.
Yeah, Saber, at least for ownership pitching wise, has a pretty much a dead heat between Wheeler, Gaussman, Verlander, and Skubal, all right around 30 to 35% ownership. So we'll see if that holds true, but it is interesting. You don't normally see it, so evenly spread out, or at least predicted to be spread out ownership wise like that. So yeah. Are you Skubal over Wheeler tonight, JT, if you had to choose one?
Probably.
I feel like his strikeout upside is higher, and I feel better about his floor too. Milwaukee, I feel like they would be more likely to do some serious damage. Against Wheeler.
I could see Wheeler. I could see Wheeler with like one of those 20, 22 point performances, like almost what we saw from Freddie Peralta yesterday.
Yeah,
which is like it's fine, but it's not great.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's half the slate, 8-game slate. We talked about 4 games. Good time to remind you guys, hit the like button. It does help us out. It does help us bringing these shows completely free of charge 6 days a week here on the MLB side. And then, of course, we've got everything you need over Run Pure Sports Baseball, but every other sport going on right now as well. You can use promo code DC15 for 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. Let's get to the second half of this slate. St. Louis Cardinals and the Houston Astros. This one in Houston. I assume the roof will be closed. It is Justin Verlander, who I guess I kind of got to get behind. I've been resisting and not really playing much Verlander, and he's been given to me for the most part. Now he has had a really nice run of matchups. In his last 4 games, he's faced Seattle, Oakland, Detroit, who he did very well against all 3 of those teams, and then one tougher matchup against Milwaukee where he didn't pitch well. And then the start before those 4 was in New York, where he got a -5. So he's been, at least so far, very, very matchup sensitive. And if that holds true tonight, you would think it would be another good one coming for Mr. Verlander. He gets a Cardinals team who is showing more signs of life than they were at the beginning of the season. Nolan Gorman is swinging a really good bat over the last couple weeks. Goldschmidt has kind of come alive, so a little bit better from the Cardinals, but still a good spot for Verlander, 8,800. He's pitched pretty well, right around 95 to 100 pitches pretty much every time out. And like we said, he will be one of the, we think, 4 pitchers who should get the most ownership tonight. So curious where you stand on Verlander. I'm trying to talk myself into fading Mr. Verlander once again, might go a different direction. But curious where you stand, might need to jump on board. And then Kyle Gibson pitching for the Cardinals. I think a pretty good spot for the Astros bats. A lot of good pitchers. There's not that many offensive spots. I do think the Astros in one of the better ones on this slate. Throw it over to you, though. St. Louis and Houston, JT. What do you got?
Yeah, I saw what you saw with the schedule for Justin Verlander, and there are some strikeouts in this Cardinals matchup, but as you mentioned, the bats have come to life. This park, since they made the change with the batter's eye in center field, has skewed much more favorably to batters, and I've been trying to take advantage of that this year. I don't hate the Cardinals here tonight. I think there's some leverage there against the 28% owned Verlander. The Astros bullpen has been a little bit better, but it still can be attacked, I think. So I don't hate the Cardinals as a contrarian stack here. Gibson is okay as a pitcher, okay real-life pitcher. He's had some interesting games, a good game against Cincinnati last time out. So I'm on board. I think we can play some Astro stacks as well. As of right now, I don't find myself really excited to play either one of these pitchers. If I was going to lean one versus the other, I think I might play Kyle Gibson, which seems crazy, but it's just the way the price points and the matchups. And I think there's some regression here for Justin Verlander, who's allowed or left stranded 85% of base runners. That number is going to come down, and I wouldn't be surprised if it started to come down tonight.
Yeah, I think you make good points there. I personally, Gibson not really in play for me, but the Cardinals bats I think are kind of interesting against Verlander. They're cheap too, right? I mean, the most expensive one is Paul Goldschmidt at 4K. So you can, you can easily get a mini stack of the Cardinals with some bigger bats or with aces if you want to go that direction. So kind of like that. Nolan Gorman would be the number one target for me, but yeah, Burleson has hit a little bit. You can swing it from the left side. And then I really like both Tucker and Alvarez. Of course, you could say that most nights, but does profile as a very, very strong matchup for them against Kyle Gibson. Wouldn't be surprised to see either one of them or perhaps both go yard off of Gibson, who does struggle giving up power to left-handed bats in particular. So interesting game there between St. Louis and Houston. I do think kind of a sneaky spot to go to the bats, maybe against Verlander as a leverage stack there. Should get very low-owned, cheap Cardinals if you do go in that direction. Let's go out to my neck of the woods here in Coors Field. Going to be one of the best, if not the best, hitting environments that we've had in Coors Field so far this year. Should be 80, 85 degrees at game time, which means, or it should mean anyway, that we get a bunch of runs in Coors Field tonight. Total sitting at 10.5 between the Rockies and the Reds. We've got Ryan Feltner on the mound for the Rockies. It's not the worst pitcher, I guess, but certainly nothing to fear. I do think the Reds, despite struggling on offense, need to be considered here. And then Andrew Abbott pitching for the Reds, he's got some serious home run issues against right-handed bats in particular. I do think the Rocky side of this looks pretty good. That it's not a good lineup, but they do have some real power against lefties in that lineup, especially at the kind of the bottom of the order, cheap too. So I don't think you have to play Coors Field tonight, JT, but 8-game slate, it is a little smaller of a slate, and there is a lot of good pitching. So I do think people are probably going to flock to this game, by far the highest total, all that stuff as you expect in Coors Field. What are you doing? Obviously a big decision on how you handle the Coors Field game, as it always is on a Coors Field slate, but talk to us Rockies and Reds.
Yeah. It's interesting because the ownership that's showing, at least the projected ownership on these teams, I have to believe is going to creep up, right? I have to believe that they're going to see the names Ryan Feltner and Andrew Abbott and think, okay, this is obviously it's Coors. I have to play this. And Feltner's been, Feltner would probably be a decent pitcher on another team in another ballpark. It's just not going to happen for him or anybody probably in Coors Field. And then Abbott has sort of started to turn around his poor start to the season. But if you look at, what Colorado in particular has been doing against left-handers, they've just been smashing the ball. So it's an interesting spot here. I think Colorado, and people are now getting sharp to that because it looks like Colorado is going to be owned about the same as Cincinnati. At least that's the projection. That may change. But it is tough. Like the prices here are not, super discounted. People are in there talking about, the price for Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, 6'5" for a guy who was hitting like 130 or 115, something like that over the last. Now, obviously, you go to Coors Field, that can cure a lot of things. But it does seem like they're just more expensive than I really want to spend for a team that's been struggling as much as they have. But I will definitely be playing them. I'll definitely be playing both sides of this. Haven't decided yet if it's going to be in my main teams. Certainly Colorado, the more affordable side of this. And Cincinnati's bullpen has been getting hit pretty regularly. So I don't think Colorado's a bad play here either.
You like the Colorado side better?
I think I do right now. Just looking at pricing, I think it is a little better for me.
The tough part for me with Colorado, there is some pinch hit risk with most of the guys you want to play. The guys that are most appealing to me, you got Tovar at the top of the lineup, and then beyond that, I kind of like Doyle Stallings has hit lefties pretty well, and then Bouchard and Goodman, like their number one strength, I would say, is hitting against lefties, power against lefty pitchers. So it does profile really well for those guys who are pretty cheap, but they could come out of the game early. So a little bit of risk there with the Rockies bats. I think a lot of upside though, right? I mean, listen, the reason you play those guys is for, the power hitting against lefties, and Abbott profiles as a pitcher he is a pitcher who gives up a lot of power to right-handed bats. So obviously throwing Coors Field into the mix does look like a pretty good spot for those youngsters near the bottom of that Rockies lineup. I'll certainly be going there on a good number of teams. And we'll just kind of hope to, sometimes you just got to kind of hope to get lucky on the pinch hit stuff, right? It doesn't always happen, and you can't always predict it, obviously. But on the Rockies, I'll have some Reds too, like you mentioned. Felt they're not a huge strikeout guy, which obviously would, in theory, help Ellie De La Cruz get the ball in play, and we know what he can do if he does. So I'll certainly be playing some Coors Field, but won't be going too crazy with it myself.
Yeah, so being here talks about the fact that there's literally a 2K guy at every position. Okay. I mean, that's great. So you can fit this team in, but you still need essentially 20-plus points from 4 to 5 guys at their prices. So and the 2K guys, I mean, we talked about that. Someone mentioned it, David Dahl. There's no guarantee David Dahl is playing 9 innings. So, I mean, that sort of doesn't really sway me of like, oh, there's a 2K guy, so I can play the most expensive team on the slate. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, being there. Get out of here with your 2K guy at every slate. But there is, more of them available on the slate at least. Doesn't mean they're going to do anything. Most of them are near the bottom of the lineup, and most of them anyway are 2K for a reason. But it does allow you at least to go to the big bats or expensive pitchers if you do want to go in that direction. Let's talk about these last 2 games. We of course will do pitchers, stacks, home runs, all that good stuff at the end of the game, or at the end of the show rather. But first, let's talk about the San Diego Padres and the LA Angels. We got Matt Waldron pitching for San Diego. Obviously throws that knuckleball, 30-40% of the time. He's been, I kind of doubted that he would be able to make it work, but he certainly has in these last 4 starts, averaging 25, 22, 23 fantasy points per game. Has had good outings against the Dodgers, against the Braves, in Cincinnati, and then has dominated Miami in his last start. Strikeouts have been way up. I don't know, maybe the uniqueness of him. We haven't seen anybody succeed kind of pitching this style, but maybe that's a boon to him, just because obviously he's unique and the hitters are used to seeing high velocity. He obviously brings something different on a good portion of his pitches. So I think he's interesting at 7,400. Obviously, pretty good matchup here against the Angels, who have been really good against lefty pitchers. Especially recently, not so much the case against the right-handers. So Angels have some, high contact guys at the top of the lineup, but a lot of strikeouts at the bottom of the lineup, assuming it is the projected lineup that they come out with. So Matt Waldron, I think, in play here at 7,400. I think it's close between he and Tyler McGill. Curious where you stand on those two. And then Tyler Anderson pitching for the Angels. He's still making it work for now. It doesn't seem like it can last much longer, like his last start against the Yankees. Somehow walked 6 Yankees over 5 innings and only gave up 1 earned run. Dodging bullets in that one for sure was Tyler Anderson. I still think it's kind of going to collapse for him, and maybe that starts tonight against the Padres team, who is swinging the bats a little bit better. High contact team. I don't think personally Tyler Anderson is really at all in play. Waldron, I certainly think is, and then Padres stack, I think, is somewhat interesting here in Los Angeles. What about you, JT? Padres and Angels.
Yeah, I essentially agree with everything you just said. Waldron, this is one hell of a run that he's on, and I read an article about him where he throws that knuckleball harder, so it's more like a major league changeup speed, And obviously that has a tendency to have hitters struggle more because you can't just sit there and wait for it because it's coming on you a little bit more quickly. I think Tyler Anderson is going to get destroyed one of these games. He's been incredibly lucky. A 211 average on balls hit in play, 87% of base runners stranded, and his expected ERA a full 2 runs higher than his current ERA. So San Diego, one of my favorite stacks here on this slate, definitely going to be a little bit unique. And I look, as good as Waldron has been, as good as he may be, as different as he is, I always worry with these guys that come out of nowhere and have this type of run because we know, DC, that the stinker is coming, right? That bad start is coming. I just don't know if it's going to be against the Angels, but I will for sure in my 150 have some Angels stacks. Although I will say, the point I'll make, San Diego's bullpen has been literally the best in baseball, best or second best in baseball. And it's just tough for a full stack to get there.
Yeah. Being here talking about Estrada, they're late inning guy, just striking out everybody. They got one of the best closers in baseball in Suarez. So I'm with you there. I think the Angels are, a decent contrarian look. I think I'd rather go though. I don't know, against a Verlander, against a Gaussman, get truly contrarian, get the leverage. If I'm going that direction.
Angels are not. They're not anywhere near any of my main teams. But I mention it just because at some point, like every major league pitcher, this guy's going to have a bad game.
Yeah, and I do like that heart of the order for the Padres. The Tatis, Profar, Machado looks really good to me. You can go down to Hogdong Kim if you want, 4,100 for him. So yeah, I'm with you on the Padres. I think they look pretty good against Tyler Anderson, and it does seem like he's a somewhat of a ticking time bomb. Would like to be on that when it does eventually go south for Tyler Anderson. Seems like a matter of time at this point with the way he's been pitching. Let's get to the last game of the slate. San Francisco Giants, Arizona Diamondbacks. This one in Arizona. It'll be Ryan Nelson pitching for the Diamondbacks. Hasn't been very good this year. Did have a decent start two starts ago against the Dodgers, but other than that, it's mostly been a struggle for Ryan Nelson. Lefties have done most of the damage. Fortunately, the Giants don't have really too many lefties to speak of. No lineup yet for them. We will see what they come out there with, but they would be interesting depending on kind of what they roll out. And then the D-backs do have, I believe, the second highest total on, or third highest behind the two Coors Field teams, sitting around 4.7, 4.8 runs for the D-backs against a bullpen game for the Giants. Looks like it's going to be Eric Miller who opens the game. I would expect he pitched yesterday, so probably just one inning from Eric Miller, and then Spencer Howard is the scheduled bulk guy. Threw 49 pitches back on May 28th, so maybe 3-4 innings out of Howard, I think is what could be expected. So pretty good spot here for the D-backs. We know they can obviously do some damage at times. Where do you rate them among the stacks? And then any interest in the pitchers here? I don't think the Giants guys are playable at all, so it would just be Ryan Nelson to consider. He is very cheap at 5,800. Any interest in going there for some savings?
Probably not. I don't hate him. I just don't know that I need that level of savings. So I think he's playable. He's been a little bit unlucky as well. He's got some weird home road splits where he's actually usually been better on the road. But it's not enough of a sample for me to get all that excited about that. And it's never exciting to play the San Francisco Giants because you never know when guys are going to get pulled. But I guess if I had, I don't know. I mean, both these teams, like Arizona, I guess I would be more interested in. They're going to come at lower ownership. The Giants are surprisingly highly owned here. Maybe that's due to Ryan Nelson's splits in the Arizona bullpen. So I don't have a feeling strongly enough to go way over the field on either one of these teams. And if Ryan Nelson finds his way into a couple of lineups, it won't be the end of the world. So Not a strong lean here on either offense, though.
Yeah. A lot of strikeouts in that Giants lineup. Still don't think it's enough to get me on Mr. Nelson. I don't hate the play if you have a expensive stack that you really like. If you're trying to play Scooble or Wheeler and he fits as kind of a last guy in, but yeah, beyond that, not too much interest in Nelson. And yeah, I think the D-backs are interesting. Corbin Carroll, we get the lineup recently, hit an 8th, which frankly is kind of overdue. Dude has not had a good sophomore campaign on for the D-backs. Corbin Carroll, that is. All right, JT, that is all 8 games. Let's get to the stacks. We'll do stacks, pitching, home runs, favorite offensive play, and then we'll get on out of here, get building our lineups with the 25-minute early block today. We'll throw it to you first. We'll give you first crack at it. Favorite overall stack and favorite contrarian stack on this slate.
Yeah, I'll go with Colorado here as my favorite stack, at least as of right now, against Abbott and the Cincinnati bullpen. Contrarian, it's between the Mets and the Cardinals, and I know people are like the Mets. I just think it's a good spot, but I'll go with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are interesting here in this spot at virtually no ownership against a guy that is probably not going to be as good as he's been the last several games all year long.
All right, makes sense there. My favorite stack, I'll go with the Padres against Tyler Anderson. Just think it's coming for Tyler Anderson. Hopefully that'll start tonight, particularly that meat of the order, Tatis, Profar, and Machado is where I'm looking with the Padres. I think they're going to do some damage there. Contrarian stack, I'm going with the Orioles against Kevin Gausman, who does give up power to lefties. You can run on him, and just hasn't been that great this year. And we talked about the strength of schedule for him. Even with this recent run of pretty good pitching, most of it has come against some pretty soft matchups. Certainly doesn't have that tonight against obviously a good Orioles offense. So I do like the Orioles as a contrarian offense with some upside. Obviously, Gausman's on his game. Not going to go well, but that's baseball for you.
We started off, right? We started off saying, I don't know if there's a lot of offense. And now I think I've found my 6 teams. 6 teams, and we're going to let the chips fall.
That's one of the fun parts of doing the show. You never know what you'll talk yourself into or, what someone else will talk you into. So I'm with you. Most slates are kind of like that for me, where sometimes I'll take an initial look and be like, I don't see a ton I like here. You dig in a little bit further, talk it out, and normally pretty excited for the baseball to get going. Let's get to pitching. Most important pitcher on the slate. There is a lot of options to go to. I did mention, we think the ownership going to be kind of condensed around 4 pitchers. I think it's going to be Verlander, Wheeler, Gausman, and Scooble who get the most ownership. But what about you, JT? Where do you lean on your favorite pitcher or pitcher you'll be most overweight on tonight?
It's gonna be somewhere in this mid range, and I really wish we had some type of pitch count information on Eovaldi, because he would be just a perfect price. But it might be Tyler McGill. It might be Tyler McGill here, especially if, like I said, if Gore comes back to life, the Mets get off to a big lead. Crazier things have happened than him throwing another 20, 25-point performance here. So captain's giving me crap because I usually don't like these guys coming off like these huge games. But the difference here is the price didn't move. And when you look at Gore's price, he's now up to $9K. And it's just a thing that I have where when I'm starting to look at pricing, I think McGill is still a good play at this price. 60 pitches, someone says, for Eovaldi, which even against the Tigers, DC, with the arms on this slate, it's tough for me to get there. It's tough for me to get there.
I can't do it.
If that's right. We no offense to no offense to Beetle Bump God, I think is your screen name. People come in here all the time and say crazy things, but Walden and Madrill. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play Waldron and McGill together. So there you go.
I've actually got the same answer as you. Tyler McGill is my favorite pitcher on the slate. He is the one I will have most exposure to. And we'll see if it holds. Sabres got him at 6%. I would assume it'll be higher than that against this Nationals team. But it's not going to be crazy. Waldron, a close second, but yeah, they've got him over double the ownership. I think it's very, very close between Waldron and McGill, who I would just prefer straight up. So McGill going to be a very important pitcher for me tonight. And honestly, I think he's got like legit upside. I mean, we've seen it the last couple of games. This isn't just a savings where you're trying to get the bats. I do think McGill could easily compete with the expensive pitchers on this slate. So I'm in on Tyler McGill as well. Let's go to a home run call. Certainly plenty to choose from. Who's going yard tonight, JT?
So I was looking at obviously we're not going to do Coors, right? DC, we can't do Coors. We can't do.
You
Coors.
can do whatever you want. I don't tell JT what to do.
I don't want to.
If Sweet Travis is on the show, I'll tell him what to do. But JT, you can.
You know, and it's funny. Every week you're looking for me to say a name of like a Kyle Tucker or something, and I try not to do that. And I'm going to do that same thing here. Mark Vientos for the Mets. He's on the Mets, DC. Mark Vientos is hitting a home run. Travis is in chat, baby. Yes.
Catching strays.
There you go.
Sorry about that. I like the Vientos call. Gore against Gore, the lefty. And Vientos got real power for sure. Big boy power from Vientos. So I do like that call. I'll give it off the board one, or at least someone off the board as well. I'm going with Nolan Gorman, who's read a big power surge here. Gets Justin Verlander, who does give up his fair share of home runs. But yeah, Gorman up to 11 home runs on the year on, not even playing every day. He crushes righties, hitting cleanup, 3,500, and you get leverage against Mr. Verlander. So Nolan Gorman is my home run call. Travis Mangone, he's out of the boot. He's coming to get me. I'm shaking in my boots, Mangone. Let's go to favorite overall offensive play on the slate, JT. Which hitter is doing damage tonight?
My favorite hitter on the slate. I'm gonna go with man, how is Brendan Rodgers 3,400 DC? It's just crazy. Brendan Rodgers is one of my favorite guys on the slate.
Brendan Rodgers, he'll be a popular selection, I believe, tonight. But
it will.
Hard to argue with that price point. I'm going with Fernando Tatis against Tyler Anderson. Spending down a little bit at pitching today, so you can afford some of these big hitters for sure. All right, we're going to get out of here a few minutes early. We got the early lock coming up in hour and 10 minutes. We got lock coming up.
10 minutes.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We do appreciate it. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't yet done so. The show will be back for a big slate tomorrow, same time, same place. That'll do it for us. Hopefully you see some RPS logos up top for JT Hayes. I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.